Hello, I'm Sofia Martinez, and I'm here to tell you how my love for baking not only uncovered the true recipe for success, but also revealed the bitter taste of prejudice within my husband's high society family. For 3 years, I kept a secret. By day, I ran my cozy bakery, and by night, I managed Belusa, a flourishing chain of restaurants. Then I met James Winchester at one of my bakery's sidewalk tables. He was different from his family, genuine and interested in my humble business. When he casually mentioned that his family owned Winchester Financial Group, I nearly dropped my piping bag. But James wasn't like the elitist types I'd encountered. He loved my cinnamon rolls just as much as the fine dining his family indulged in. What James didn't know was that I had already built my empire 10 years ago with my grandmother's recipes in a small loan. I founded Belusa, an Italian restaurant chain that now boasts 30 locations across the country. I kept things low-key, focused on the quality of my work rather than seeking the limelight. The real trouble began after we got married. James's family, particularly his mother, Victoria, looked down on my bakery. Every family gathering became an opportunity for snide comments. "Darling," Victoria would say with a smirk, "now that you're a Winchester, I assume you'll give up that little shop of yours. It's hardly fitting for our family's image." I'd smile, changing the subject, all while planning Belusa's next big expansion. Ironically, the Winchesters were regulars at my restaurants, and Victoria often boasted about knowing the mysterious owner. Thanksgiving dinner this year was especially unbearable. Victoria had just organized a charity gala at one of Belusa's locations, and she couldn't stop gushing about it. "The owner is so elusive, so classy," she said. "That's real sophistication, unlike businesses that advertise on chalkboards." Her eyes landed on me, and I fought the urge to roll my eyes as she continued talking about the contract I had signed that morning for Belusa's international expansion. "Mother," James warned, but Victoria persisted. "We're talking about a culinary empire here, Sophia. This is what real business looks like, not some bakery selling cupcakes to children." James's father, Richard, nodded in agreement. "The restaurant business is complicated, Sophia. It requires sophistication, connections, and capital. Things that come from proper education and breeding." I felt James tense up, but I squeezed his hand under the table. After 3 years of these jabs, I had learned to brush them off. But today, I had bigger things on my mind, like the big announcement for Bella Cucina coming the next day. Victoria's mood lightened. "I've invited the owner of Bella Cucina to speak at the Winchester Foundation dinner next month. They've never made a public appearance, but they wouldn't refuse me. I'm their best customer after all." James's sister, Amanda, joined in. "At least we won't have to listen to bakery talk at these dinners. Let's focus on real businesses, shall we?" Laughter erupted around the table. James began to protest, but I'd had enough. 3 years of hiding my success. 3 years of pretending not to hear their insults, watching them fawn over Bella Cucina without knowing who truly owned it. It was time for a change. I pulled out my phone and texted my executive team. Protocol Winchester was in motion. "You're right, Amanda," I said, standing up. "Let's talk about real business. How about we continue this conversation tomorrow over brunch at Bella Cucina's private dining room?" Victoria's face lit up. "You can't just reserve the owner's private room, Sophia. It's reserved for." "Trust me," I said, gathering my purse. "We've got a table." As I left the mansion, I caught James's eye. He had known about my success for months, and now he was clearly enjoying the unfolding drama. Tomorrow's brunch would be the most important one Bella Cucina had ever hosted. The next morning, I arrived early at Belusa's flagship location. The restaurant was still quiet, full of potential, before the staff arrived. I walked through the kitchen in my tailored channel suit, and the staff stood at attention, surprised to see me in this new role. Everything set for Protocol Winchester. I asked Marco, my executive chef. "Ready to go, boss. I can't wait to see their faces when they try your Nana's original tiramisu." At 11 a.m., the Winchesters arrived. Victoria led the group, practically glowing with pride. "We're here for brunch with the owner," she declared. "I'm Victoria Winchester." "Ah, yes, Mrs. Winchester," said Thomas, my maitre d'. "Please follow me to the owner's private dining room." As they walked through the main dining area, James caught my gaze. He was savoring every moment. The private dining room was adorned with pictures of each Bella Cucina location, awards, and a large portrait of my grandmother. Victoria immediately locked onto the empty chair at the head of the table. "Will the owner be joining us soon?" she asked, smoothing her blouse. "The owner is already here," I said, stepping out from the shadows. A stunned silence followed. Victoria's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally horror. Richard dropped his glasses. Amanda was speechless. "This is some kind of joke," Victoria finally stammered. You run a bakery." I smiled and took my seat at the head of the table. "I run several businesses, actually. Bella Cucina is just the most famous one." I pressed a button, and a screen descended, showing Belusa's financials. 30 locations, $300 million in annual revenue, and an international expansion on the horizon. "Impossible," Richard whispered, but his banker's instincts kicked in as his eyes scanned the figures. I nodded to the staff to begin serving brunch. "Let me tell you a story," I said, as they placed the first course before my in-laws. "It starts with my grandmother's restaurant in Naples, where I learned that great food is more than just ingredients. It's about family, heart, and tradition." Victoria stared at her plate, untouched. "I used to boast about knowing the value you didn't believe I was capable of knowing," I said softly, "but you never believed I was worth knowing." James gently squeezed my hand, a proud smile in his eyes. 6 months ago, during an unexpected visit to my office, he discovered my hidden success. Rather than feeling betrayed, he was struck by how little his family truly knew. "Why keep it a secret, though?" Amanda asked, now genuinely curious. "Success isn't about recognition," I answered. "It's about building something meaningful. Every event in our restaurants, every glowing review, and every time your mother proudly spoke about our service. That's worth more than any public praise." At that moment, Thomas entered with an envelope. "The documents you requested, Mrs. Martinez Winchester." I took it and slid the papers across the table to Victoria and Richard. "Bella Cucina is expanding, and we're looking for investors. Winchester Financial Group has the first right of refusal." Richard's hands shook as he scanned the proposal, and Victoria's face drained of color. "You're giving us a chance to invest after everything we've done," Victoria stammered. I walked toward the portrait of my grandmother. "You once said the restaurant business requires sophistication, connections, and capital. But you were wrong. It needs passion, integrity, and vision." I paused, turning back toward them. "And the ability to recognize opportunities when they appear." The room absorbed this truth as the final course. Tiramisu was brought to the table, made from my grandmother's cherished recipe. "The question is," I said, "are you ready to be part of a real business?" Tension thickened the air, but this wasn't about revenge. This was about securing our future and honoring the legacy I built. Victoria stared at the tiramisu, unaware that it was crafted by the very woman she dismissed for so long. The silence was broken only by the soft clink of silver on plates as James enjoyed his dessert, a quiet smile on his face. Richard, his voice wavering, finally spoke. "We've been advising you about business while you were," he gestured toward the financial reports. "While I was building an empire," I replied, finishing his sentence. "But today isn't about humiliating you. It's about moving forward as a family and as business partners." I pressed a button, and images appeared on a screen. Architectural designs of Bella Cucina locations in London, Paris, and Tokyo. Market analysis, projected profits, expansion strategies. "We'll need substantial capital for international expansion," I explained. "Winchester Financial Group has the global reach, but any partnership would require changes in how we relate to each other." Victoria set down her spoon, visibly shaken. "Why offer us this opportunity after everything we've done to you?" "Because success without family is hollow," I said, thinking of my grandmother. "Sometimes the greatest victory isn't about proving people wrong. It's about giving them the chance to prove themselves right." Amanda's laughter rang out, genuine, unforced. "All those times we lectured you about business while you were probably calculating market trends in your head." Her laugh broke the tension. Even Victoria smiled, though tears pooled in her eyes. Richard's disbelief shifted to admiration as he absorbed the numbers in front of him. "These figures are incredible," he muttered. "You built this without outside investment?" I nodded. Every Bella Cucina location was funded through reinvested profits. No loans, no outside backers, just quality food, strong business, and my grandmother's recipes. "And the bakery?" Victoria asked. "Why keep it when you have all this?" The bakery keeps me grounded, I said with a smile. It reminds me why I started, no for profit, but for passion. Every cupcake I make there matters to me just as much as every 5-star review Bella Cucina receives. James squeezed my hand. That's what I fell in love with, not the success, but the passion, the authenticity. Everything they've dismissed is what made all this possible. The following hours transformed the family dynamics. Richard, the banker, now saw me as an equal in business. Amanda began brainstorming marketing strategies for our global launch. Victoria even expressed an interest in learning to bake. I want to understand, she said, wiping away a tear, how you built all this from flour and sugar. A year later, Winchester Financial Group became a key partner in Bella Cucina's international growth. But more importantly, our family dynamic shifted. Victoria spent Wednesdays at the bakery learning to make croissants. Richard spoke about passion, not pedigree. Today, Bella Cucina has 50 locations worldwide. The flagship restaurant proudly displays a wall of photos, including one of Victoria holding her first successful batch of pastries. The bakery still opens at dawn, and I make sure to spend at least one morning a week there, living out the dream that started it all. At the opening of our Paris location last month, Victoria stood beside me as I cut the ribbon. I was so wrong, she whispered. Success isn't about appearances or lineage, it's about following your passion, even when others don't understand. I squeezed her hand, reflecting on how far we had come. Sometimes the greatest success isn't proving others wrong, it's giving them the chance to prove they can change. James smiled, undoubtedly recalling the Thanksgiving dinner that had marked the turning point. Now our family gatherings are different. We talk about business, but Victoria insists on everyone trying her latest baking attempts. Richard helps knead dough while discussing financial strategies. Amanda's presentations often morph into impromptu cooking lessons. As for me, I run my empire, but I still rise early to bake. Because success isn't about choosing between big or small, humble or grand. It's about staying true to your passion while remaining open to the possibilities life offers. It includes the possibility that those who once looked down on you may one day stand beside you, seeing the truth that was always there. The best recipes, like the best success stories, aren't about individual ingredients. They're about how everything comes together in the end. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay inspired.